The rebalancing. Why the smart money is running as stocks are hitting all-time highs, yet gold is simultaneously exploding. Put down your champagne, because in the financial casino, that means someone is quietly swapping chips for lifeboats. Logically, booming stocks should crush safe haven assets. Instead, both are skyrocketing. In the financial world, this means the whales are quietly swapping casino chips for gold bars before the exits lock. And the guy leading the stampede? Stop guessing. It is the Oracle of Omaha himself, Warren Buffett, sitting on a historic $381.7 billion in cash. The media is still blindly praising the god of stocks for his glorious retirement. Do not be fooled by these pretty words. Open Berkshire Hathaway's financial reports, and you will find a number that should jolt you awake. $381.7 billion. What does this mean? This is the largest pile of cash ever held by a single company in human commercial history. While you are frantically buying Nvidia and Apple, what is he doing? He is selling. Not only has he aggressively dumped his favorite Apple stock for multiple consecutive quarters, but he hasn't even bought back a single share of his own company's stock in 9 months. If he is willing to slaughter his golden goose, Apple, for cash, and if even his own company's stock feels too expensive to touch, what makes you think the stocks in your hands are assets rather than worthless paper meant for bag holders? The old man isn't retiring. He is liquidating and fleeing for his life. He would rather hold on to US dollars, which are destined to depreciate, than stay in this market position for another. Second, because he sees a fatal trap that ordinary people cannot, the US kill line. We have a name for this trap, the US kill line. Do not think this is just some edgy internet slang. It is the most brutal survival rule of our time. We used to talk about the poverty line, which was meant to measure the poor. But by 2026, the poverty line is completely obsolete. What hangs over our heads now is this kill line. This is a gaming term. Once your HP drops below a certain threshold, regardless of how thick your armor is, the system instantly declares you dead. The American middle class, perhaps even you watching this, is currently living in this exact state. Academics have given this demographic a somewhat ironic acronym, ALICE. That stands for asset limited, income constrained, employed. In plain English, they look glamorous on the outside but shatter at the slightest touch. Even if you earn over $10,000 a month and drive a luxury car, if 70% of your income is locked into rigid expenses like a mortgage, healthcare, and your children's education, you are exactly one minor accident away from bankruptcy. A bad flu, a broken-down car, or a small-scale corporate layoff can instantly obliterate your cash flow, kicking you straight out of your office cubicle and into a street tent. This is not fear-mongering. The data is right there. Last year, the homeless population in the U.S. surged by 18%, exceeding 770,000 people. Many of them were respectable people just like you. Yesterday, the system does not give you a chance to recover. It is an instant death trigger. The $38 trillion debt black hole, you might ask. Who ruined our livelihoods? Why could we save money before, but now we are barely surviving despite working ourselves to the bone? Every debt has its debtor. The entity pushing you to the brink is none other than the big brother who swore to protect you. Look at this number. $38 trillion. This is the U.S. national debt. Even more terrifying is that the money used just to pay the interest on this debt broke $1 trillion this year, more than the military budget, and more than Medicare. How is this a country? This is a gambler living on high-interest loans. When a country's first priority every morning is to borrow new debt to pay off the old, It only has one way to survive: reaching into your pocket and quietly stealing your savings through inflation. This is why Buffett is running. This is why gold and U.S. stocks are rising together. The smart money knows that a massive wealth purge targeting ordinary people has already begun. So, how does the reaper swing his scythe? Are the legendary new policies a life-saving cure or a deadlier poison? Let's take a scalpel to the belly of this empire. The mechanics of the purge. The real target here is the ALICE demographic. The most venomous part of the kill line is that it doesn't target the homeless man sleeping on the street. He is already completely drained. It targets the person clocking in at 9 a.m., leaving at 9 p.m., and desperately trying to pay their mortgage. For a typical American family, your pay stub looks long, but 70% of that money is pre-deducted by housing, medical care, education, and retirement before it even reaches your hands. You think that's your money? No, you are just a temporary conduit. This leads to a fatal consequence. Your financial system has zero shock absorbers. It is like driving a car with no suspension down a highway at top speed. Even a tiny pebble, like a sudden appendectomy requiring tens of thousands in out-of-pocket costs, or a broken transmission costing a few $1,000s, triggers the kill line. You can't afford to fix your car, so you can't go to work. You can't go to work, so you default on your mortgage. You default on your mortgage, and the bank forecloses on your house. The transition from middle class to homeless doesn't require a Great Depression anymore. It just requires a single emergency room bill. Who compressed our margin of error to almost zero? Who pushed this kill line higher and higher? There is only one culprit: the country that took out the high-interest loan. This is the real ghost story today. In 2025, the U.S. Treasury achieved something historic. The interest expense on U.S. national debt surpassed $1 trillion for the first time. Since the government won't tighten its own belt, they fill this hole using their only trick: manufacturing inflation. It is an undeclared tax. Your salary used to buy 100 loaves of bread, but now only buys 80. Those vanished loaves were taken by the state to pay its debts. This is why the kill line keeps moving up and why your purchasing power is the scapegoat. In this system, the government is the casino, Wall Street is the dealer, and millions of Alices are the chips that must be sacrificed. Buffett's 3 unorthodox maneuvers in the eyes of apex predators. The current stock market highs are just bait. Watch exactly what the man who truly sees the bottom cards, Warren Buffett, has done over the past 6 months. He is executing 3 highly counterintuitive moves that fiercely slap the face of the bull market narrative. 1. Slaughtering the favorite. Shorting U.S. consumption. His most confusing move for the market was frantically selling Apple. Apple is the crown jewel of U.S. stocks, Buffett's best business, and half of his portfolio. And note, Apple's stock is still rising. The media will tell you it was to avoid tax risks. Do you believe that nonsense? Chopping down a money tree to save a little on taxes? The truth is, Buffett is shorting the purchasing power of the U.S. middle class. If the ALICE demographic has 70% of their income locked by rigid expenses, what do they cut first when a crisis hits? The mortgage or the $1,000 new iPhone? The answer is obvious. In a life or death choice, consumer electronics are the first non-essential expenses abandoned. He isn't selling Apple. He is selling his trust in the U.S. consumer myth. He sees clearly that in this debt-crushed era, the prosperity propped up by maxed-out credit cards is coming to an end. Even the golden goose might freeze to death. 2. Digging a cash bunker waiting for the carnage. His second move is the most despair-inducing for market bulls, hoarding $381.7 billion in cash. Novices ask, Isn't Buffett stupid? With inflation so high, holding cash just means sitting around waiting for it to depreciate. This is the gap between retail thinking and grandmaster thinking. To retail investors, cash is for buying bread. To a grandmaster, cash is a call option. Why hasn't he bought back a single share of his own stock in 9 months during this massive bull market? Why is he purely selling every day? Because in his eyes, the current market is entirely froth and garbage. Not a single asset is worthy of his dollars. He is waiting for the bubble to burst. When the kill line thoroughly shatters the middle class, when the debt crisis detonates, when U.S. stocks free fall from their highs, and when all the fund managers are crying for liquidity, this $380 billion becomes the scepter of God. He will use $1 to buy assets currently priced at $10, just like in 2008 when Goldman Sachs was on the brink of collapse and only Buffett had the life-saving cash. He isn't afraid of inflation. He is waiting for a landscape of corpses. This $380 billion is his admission ticket for the next era. 3. The only arc, the ticket to hard assets. Since he is buying almost nothing, is the old man completely empty-handed? No. Here lies the crucial third move. While frantically selling tech stocks, he has been quietly and firmly doing one thing: buying oil. In his final year before announcing his succession plan, he dropped $9.7 billion in cash to acquire Occidental Petroleum. Why oil? Why energy? Because this is the ultimate closed-loop logic against the kill line. In a chaotic world where paper money wildly depreciates and tech bubbles fly everywhere, what absolutely cannot lie? The laws of physics. A why running fast still needs to burn electricity. Cool electric vehicles still need to be charged. Where does electricity come from? Energy. Buffett understands that tech stocks earn an emotional premium, which can drop to zero, but energy stocks earn a survival rent. That is a tax everyone must pay just to stay alive. When the credit of the US dollar collapses and no one buys US bonds, oil buried underground is the only hard currency to fight the printing press. 3 iron rules for survival. Buffett is betting on a massive national reset. He is betting that the kill line will ultimately snap the neck of the old economy. When the old era falls, those holding cash and energy will become the kings of the new world. If a 95-year-old billionaire is putting on a bulletproof vest, why are you still running around naked? If the man holding $380 billion in cash is panicking, where do you get your sense of security from your meager savings? As an ordinary person who cannot short the market and lacks billions in cash, how do we survive this impending balance sheet purge? I have prepared 3 ironclad rules for survival. They may sound harsh and somewhat anti-human, but remember, in a chaotic world, the most comfortable posture is usually the one that gets you killed fastest. Rule 1. Cut your rigid expenses to the bone if you are planning to take out a massive loan for a McMansion with zero intrinsic value other than housing you or buying a luxury car that loses 20% of its value the second you drive it off the lot. Chop off your hands. In this cycle, cash flow is oxygen. You must brutally crush your rigid overhead from 70% down to 50% or even lower. Only when you don't have to worry about tomorrow's bills. Do you earn the right to sit at the table and wait for the bottom? Rule 2. Shift from bubbles to bedrock. Once survival is secured, how do you actually profit from this mess? If U.S. stocks are dangerous, where do we put our money to fight inflation? Copy Buffett's homework. Sell the illusion, buy the tangible. He sold tech and banks, things that rely on a booming economy and full wallets. When the economy is bad, who buys a new phone every year? Who takes out consumer loans? Instead, he bought Occidental Petroleum and Energy. Regardless of how poor you are, you have to burn oil for heat and use electricity for light. This is a survival tax. Stop clinging to tech stocks with massive price-to-earnings ratios based purely on storytelling. If you must allocate assets, look at hard assets dug from the earth that humanity cannot survive without: oil, copper, silver, and agricultural land. When paper money turns to waste paper, these are the hard currencies of the new world. Switch your portfolio from offensive to defensive counterattack. Rule 3. The art of holding empty space, the final and hardest rule. Learn to do nothing. Don't feel like money burns a hole in your pocket. Look at Buffett. Does he look anxious with $380 billion sitting in his accounts? Even with AI concept stocks going crazy, he pretends not to see them. He knows that in this market, the greatest risk is not missing out. It is dying just before dawn. The current market is a mousetrap full of bait, using the final frenzy to lure you in as the bag holder. Right now, holding cash is an inherently aggressive position. Your cash is your ammunition. You need to lie entirely still by the river like a crocodile, the era's fuel, or the ark's passenger. The brutal reality of this game is simple. 2026 is not a year to see who runs the fastest. It is a year to see who lives the longest. The seemingly glorious U.S. financial skyscraper has had its foundation hollowed out by $38 trillion in debt termites. The kill line is indiscriminately harvesting everyone who drops their guard. This is a war without smoke. The dealers have shown their hand. They will use inflation to destroy debt and use bubbles to cover up the recession. In this game, you can be the hunter or you can be the prey. You can be the one sitting on the ark or the fuel drowned by the flood. The choice is not in the hands of the Federal Reserve, and it is not in the hands of politicians. It is entirely in yours.